This is what we're going to do. This is the briefing. Good, you're here. We start now. We're going to ask you to complete a VMC dissertation proposal form. I've had a number of people ask me about the proposal form for the essay, which it resembles. The whole purpose of this, your last essay, is to get you limbered up for the dissertation, to get you used to it. The wonderful thing about that proposal form is this. It's like a bag. Here's my bag. Okay? It's like having a bag with you. And what you're doing is you're thinking, I wonder what I'm going to do for my essay, or for that dissertation. You've got that file on a data stick about your person somewhere. And as you're thinking about things, if you come across a person maybe who has something interesting to say about your subject area that you're thinking about, make a note of them in that file. If you come across a book, if you read a magazine, if you do something in your studio that you think is relevant, make a note of it in that file. You should be gradually accumulating stuff. Now for the essay, we just say to you, just start to complete this, start doing things, okay? It's just doing stuff. I'm just going to put it down there, quiet for a minute. But for the dissertation proposal, we're going to ask you to really spend some time. Let me turn that sound down as well as driving me mad. There we go. We're going to ask you to take some time to put that form together. Why do we ask you to do that? It's not just some malicious, vicious side of us that just wants you to work for the sake of it. You have, quite rightly, limited energy and limited time that you can put into this bit of your project, your course. And that's absolutely right. Your main reason for being here is to develop as a practitioner and to go out and be effective. So naturally, most of your course is about just that. Absolutely right. If you've only got that amount of time and you're doing your practice the rest of the time, you need to use that incredibly efficiently. You don't have the luxury of just thinking, oh well, I'm writing about the history of dovetails and that's what I'm doing, so I don't have to think about that anymore. And you could waste such a lot of time just staring at, I'm sorry, dovetails, that was unfair, furniture people. But you take my point. If you don't know exactly what you're doing, you won't be able to apply your energy, focus it on doing the right things. That's why on the form it says, what questions are you asking? Once you know what questions you're asking, then you know what's relevant, what isn't relevant, how to look at evidence, how to interview your interviewees. Hello, would you like to just sign there? Thank you. You take my point. The proposal form is a bit like a pitch to a publisher. It has to be coherent, and it doesn't just have to persuade your tutor that it's going to work, it has to persuade you. That's why we ask you to go through it. So you'll find the form. In fact, I think now is the time. How are we doing for time? Okay. What I'm going to do now, I'd just like to very briefly take you through the process of doing this. Sorry, right, let's do the shape of the whole thing. Sorry, right. So, you think about it now. You submit your proposal on the 1st of May. We give you feedback on the proposal and say that is a brilliant idea, or that is a rubbish idea, resubmit it, or that's a good idea but here's some suggestions for improving it. And usually the third is the one that comes through most times. So you know when the summer starts what you're going to do. Absolutely essential. You mustn't leave this year without having your proposal approved and commented on. And notice that your proposal is going to be signed off not just by a VMC tutor, but by one of your studio tutors as well. So you can see how this joins up, okay? So then you have the summer. You heard those students. You used the summer to do the research. Let me just answer another question that I was asked yesterday. Somebody said to me, and I hear this question every year, and it's a reasonable question. Ray, what about if I just really put my back into it over the summer, and I do all the research, and I write the whole of the dissertation, and I come back, and it's done, and then I don't have to worry about it. It sounds superficially attractive. Don't do it, all right? I'll tell you why. You've got the summer in which to do most of the research, and it's a good time to go and visit places, talk to people, record your interviews, those sorts of things. If you eat into that time by writing the thing, you have less time to do research in, so that reduces the research base. But more dangerous than that, if you write it and you haven't shown it to anybody, and you haven't had any guidance, and you haven't had any help or support, with the best of intentions, the chances are you'll put a lot of energy into generating something that is not as good as it might be. And that's putting it politely, okay? So use the summer for the research. The more you find out, the clearer it will become what it is that you're going to do. When you come back, we ask you to do a short 5-minute presentation. You just present your entire dissertation in 5 minutes. It's a great discipline. You do an introduction. You say the purpose of my dissertation is to examine, do whatever it might be. In the first chapter, I explore. In the second, that are my interim conclusions are. All right? Now we'll do a footnote here. Sometimes what happens over the summer is that you do your research, and you know the thing that you said you were going to do at the beginning, you end up not doing, and you end up doing something else that's really interesting. This is not a problem, but it needs attending to. You need to notice it. There's nothing more depressing. We're going to mark a load of dissertations now. There's nothing more depressing than reading a dissertation which says in the introduction, I am going to examine the extent to which the representation of women in advertising has become completely non-feminist in the early 21st century, say, and then actually you read something that isn't about that. It's about something that's quite interesting, but it's not about that. The thing to do is to notice if your work drifts. We can do one of two things. We can adjust the research question so that you say you're going to do the thing that you're actually doing. That's the easiest remedy. The slightly more painful one is to get you back on track. They're both possible. Don't rule them out, and don't resist things when they become interesting. Only later on, as it's nearing the hand-in, do we become a bit disciplined and say, interesting isn't enough. You must make sure that what you're doing is relevant, that it answers the question. You do a presentation. You then have tutorials with your studio tutor and with your VMC tutor, and you write a full first draft. The full first draft is not assessed. That means it doesn't affect the quality of your final degree. It is more important than that. It is the one time that you submit a piece of work to us, and we not only give you feedback of the kind you've grown accustomed to, we actually go through it line by line, page by page, and we comment on how you can improve it. Now, that first draft, we actually clear our decks so that we're in a position to do that at the time we have the deadline. And the deadline is in November, and you're handing in towards the end of January. Okay? It is more important almost than meeting the deadline for a piece of work that is assessed to get that first draft in. Do come in, please sign there. Okay, although these people have come in, I'm going to say this again because this is another very important message. That first draft, you will get the most feedback you have ever got from us. We will give you practical advice about how you can modify what it is that you've done in order to really improve it before you submit it. If you miss the first draft, if you don't hit that deadline and hand in something that's a bit valuable, a bit like the final thing, you put yourself at a disadvantage. You put yourself at a real disadvantage, because the only thing you can do then is go hell for leather for the end, and we can't help you in the way that we could if you get the first draft in. So that's really important. Then some more tutorials. Man died. Some more tutorials, and then you hand it in at the end of January. I'll just pause here and see whether anybody has any questions about the shape of that. Do you understand that? If you do have questions after this morning, by all means email them to me and I'll respond.